Welcome to Founders Tales, Vivek. Do you want to just give the audience a quick introduction to yourself and Lappu AI?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for hosting me and having me on this podcast. Sure. Myself, I'm Vivek. I have been in the cybersecurity industry for about 20 years now. I've worked through numerous startups and big companies and have seen the evolution of startups from like a small 30% company to a 1200% company. I've seen that evolution of a startup as well. That was with Bit9 Carbon Black, which was in the New England area. It went to IPO and was ultimately acquired by VMware. So that was a great something that I experienced. And a little bit after that experience, that's what inspired me to start my own startup. And that's when we started with Lappu AI. And Lappu AI is primarily focused on email security. All aspects of email security, we are continuing to develop and evolve the product into like a fully mature email security platform. More to come, right? Still in the very early stages of that.
Yeah, brilliant. And what was the problem or the problems that first sparked the idea for Lappu AI?
So during my free time, I had been working on certain open source projects, and I was also doing a little bit of consulting along with some of the other work that I was doing. And for doing that, I had to do trials of a lot of open source software or trials of a lot of paid subscription-based software. And I started getting vendor emails about, asking to subscribe for more or getting more information, so on and so forth. At some point of time, I realized that some of the emails looked suspicious. They were like, they seemed very similar to vendor emails, but it was kind of like a sixth sense that said, there's something suspicious about these emails. And I started looking into them. And after a little bit of investigation, what I figured was I was actually a target for certain spoofing and phishing attacks. And that's what sparked the curiosity. And I started looking into it and then started looking into, is this just me? The first question I always ask, is it just me or it's like a widespread problem? I'm just one small piece of a big problem. And once I started looking into it, what I realized was like over 60% of the domains in the world are susceptible to spoofing and phishing attacks. And I was just one guy who was part of a very big problem. And this is something that has been validated by the Gartner State of Email Security report and the Verizon Data Breach report as well, where they talk a lot about a lot of the attacks that typically tend to start from emails. That's the initiation point of many attacks. And then looking further into it, what I realized was that a lot of the information required to figure if they are susceptible to email-based attack vectors is actually public information in your DNS records. So someone outside of your network without absolutely any knowledge of your network can determine whether you are susceptible to spoofing and phishing, and they can actually execute the attack without ever breaching your network perimeter. Now that's scary, right? Like when put in that context, that's a scary information. They don't even have to be inside your network or access to any of your resources, infrastructure, or SaaS infrastructure. I could sit on my desktop right here and execute an attack without actually having anything to do with the network. And that's where the whole Lappu AI email security solutions originated.
Yeah, I think that coupled with the 60% figure,
absolutely,
put those two together, and that's, as you said, I would echo that that's quite a scary combination.
Absolutely.
Cool. So as you're building out then, how does your current MVP look comparative to your first version?
So my first version was about, I think, like 5 months ago. And my current MVP from a UI perspective, the look and feel is fairly similar to what we had. Compared to what I had 4 months ago, the UI has a lot more functionality. We have at least like 12 times more functionality that we had at the end of month one, right? From the perspective of look and feel, it looks and feels similar. Like we haven't paid as much attention to the design aspects of it, but functionality-wise, a lot more. And from the backend perspective, the UI actually exposes about 20% of the functionality that the backend actually has. So from day one to today, I think I could very easily say we are at least like 30x more than where we were at the end of month one, right?
Wow, that's a lot of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the advent of AI-based coding tools have definitely accelerated, right? Like I couldn't say that a handful of people could do that much work, but AI is definitely making our lives much easier.
Yeah. Okay. And so moving on then, in terms of the learning curve you've gone through, what was the biggest moment that you've had, and how did you handle that?
So one of my learnings for startups was that the highs and lows in a startup, especially at this stage, are very frequent. Like on a same day, you could have a very high, and you could be feeling very low as well at different points in the same day. So on the day that we signed up our first design partner, I was on the moon. I was like, wow. So we got validation. We have a design partner who will help us validate the product. And on the very same day, in the evening, I come back and my backend is all like in disarray, so to say, right? Like I couldn't get the results I wanted at all. And, we had like a lunch meeting. I came back and I'm like on the moon literally. And 2 hours later, I'm sitting here and trying to do some stuff for this design partner and I can't get it to work. And it was like to depth of, I just promised my first design partner, I promised them something and I'm like, but anyway, so then we dug into it, and late that night, after midnight, right? Like we actually were able to figure out the problem, get through it, and we met our commitments. And it ultimately ended up being that it was authentication issues. A different component in the backend was updated, and it had a complete re-architecture. And when that component was uninstalled and installed, it changed the authentication of a different component, which caused some issues. And as engineers, we are taught to look for change. And the component that we were focusing on, it had zero change. But a different component kind of like stepped on it, which we did not anticipate. And scary, but yeah, that's the life of startup. From here directly to here in like 2 hours. But
a roller coaster of a day.
A roller coaster of a day, and that's when you really find out what you're made of, right? Like that's when the real inner self of you comes to the fore, helps you figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And then in terms of your leadership habits, how would you say they've changed from year one to the current day?
Thank you for asking that. This is like leadership is one thing for which I'm really, really grateful for the Bit9 Carbon Black leadership teams that they had. I had several supporters in that team, several people who used to champion for me, and they asked me to go through like an 18-month leadership development program where we as a group would meet for a day or two every month and work on leadership skills. So that has been foundational for me, and I go back to that many a times when I find myself in difficult situations. And of course, I've had leadership coaches in the past who have helped me through these situations as well. To answer your question, right, like for a startup, I definitely have gone through changes in my leadership style and in how I deal with difficult situations. And I feel like this experience has made me more determined, focused, opinionated, and malleable at the same time, right? I find myself a little bit more comfortable with chaos than I was 18 months ago. And it has resulted me in being a little bit more calmer in situations that used to unsettle me before. Just because of practice and just because of there is no other option. You have to get through it. So might as well stay calm, figure it out, and move forward.
Yeah, great to hear that you've grown personally through your startup journey to date. Long may that continue.
Thank you.
So, looking back, how did you convince your first partner, customer, to believe in your vision?
So the very first one was actually easy. The very first one, that's something on LinkedIn. You can see in my LinkedIn profile. Previous colleague of mine or previous friend of mine actually gave me recommendation for that. They were having email problems and they knew I was working through email security startup. They asked me for it, for help. And we were able to resolve their issues in a very short period, like about a week. We were able to get to the bottom of the issues that they were facing. And they were also actually under severe attack for spoofing, specifically spoofing. They were under attack. And because we were able to resolve their issues, they were sold. They were like, all right, we're on board, right? Like, you came through in a difficult hour for us, so we are on board. The second one was actually harder. It was way harder. We discussed that a little bit, right? Like the day when I got the design partner and then we had this thing. And to convince them, we had to help them understand that there are things that they don't know, right? It's like, if I'm a cybersecurity professional, I know very little about physics, but there are other things which I don't even know that I don't know. So this was an issue with tax and accounting professionals, just to convince them that you are under constant attack in a specific way. For them, they've been using certain security measures and they were very happy with that. But at the end of the day, we were able to convince them just to share some data with us. And with that data, we were able to very quickly turn around for them the attacks they were under. And one of the things that we've actually found ever since then is that absolutely 100% of our customers, design partners, or prospects are under email-based attack vectors, 100%. And each one of them has done something about this issue after they talked to us. They may not have, I was not able to get all of them on board to our solution, but each one of them acted and did something about once we discovered the issues. And the reason some of them didn't come on board with us is because they wanted mature solutions which work today. They didn't want to go through the journey of a startup, because it is a journey. We are upfront about that. We're not offering a complete, fully vetted 100% enterprise solution today. We are offering a journey, really, and you have to be willing to be part of that.
Yep. Brilliant. Thanks for sharing. And then when you're hiring, Vivek, how do you spot startup DNA in candidates?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. That's actually a very, very good question, because everyone has a slightly different version of what traits are required to be successful and what they look for in a team. Personally, for me, I look for three things. One is, foremost, is being a team player. Number two is you should be intrinsically driven. You do not need motivation from outside to excel. You have to be intrinsically motivated. And the third is relentless. You just can't stop. If you decide to do something, you have to be relentless about it, irrespective of the obstacles that you might face. So I look for these three things to create a team. And yeah,
Yeah, brilliant. So moving on to some reflections and maybe advice for others. Out of interest, why did you choose to build in Boston?
I have been in the area since 2002, and this feels like home, right? Like this is home for me, and I I just feel like I'm Boston. Yes, I don't have the Boston accent yet. I don't say car. I say car instead of a car, right? But I am a Bostonian. I don't see myself. I think I'll die here. Whenever it happens, I'll be here. I'll be buried somewhere around my house somewhere. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And if you could send one message back to yourself on day one, what would that be?
On day one for myself, I made a conscious choice to work from home, to stay at home. And I think if I were to do everything all over again, I would choose to be in an office at least a couple of days a week. And to be very honest, I think, I would, if I were to redo that, I would start day one in an office and just go with there. Part of it was I had been part of remote culture so often now that I felt like it would be okay. But for myself, I think I would spend a few days in office. That would be what I would tell myself.
Yeah, particularly if you were surrounded by other founders.
Exactly.
You know, the platform to engage, learn from each other, etc., would naturally be there, wouldn't it? Cool. And then finally, what is there a particular quote or mindset that you keep returning to?
Every morning when I get up, when I start my day, I say to myself, today is a new day. Get things done and move forward. That's my every day when I start my day, this is what I tell myself. And that's just the start of the intrinsic motivation for myself to take on whatever obstacles or challenges or highs or lows I might face during the day.
Perfect. Well, fantastic. Vivek, thank you for joining today on Founders Tales. Really enjoyed listening to your story, and best of luck for yourself and Lappu moving forward.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you reaching out and having this, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share part of my story with you, and looking forward to collaborating with you in the future as well.